In the 1890s, stonemason Charles Tenner had a plan for his family.
He worked in the quarry, did most of the work in the quarry down here. That's why he bought Tenner Hill for 50 cents a day. See. And he bought 10 lots in here, so each child could have a lot, you know.
Every house was Tenner's.
I can remember when people raised chickens, had gardens.
And it was a big family. Most all of them were dead. Only 4 or 5 of us left now. And all our uncles and aunts, and mothers and fathers, and a lot of others.
But there were other names too, like Bryce, Bird, Honesty, Lee. They were farmers, business people, craftsmen, and landowners in Falls Church, Virginia.
They wanted to be a part of America, and coming from nothing, working hard, and attaining a piece of land to call their own was very important to them.
Frederick Forrest Foote Jr. was a merchant. He was elected to the town council in 1880. Harriet Bryce, a former slave, was a major property owner. She and her husband George donated land for the building of Galloway Church. George Thomas had a shoe shop at South Washington and Broad Street for 57 years. In 1913, 2 young school teachers, E.B. Henderson and his wife, Mary Ellen Merriweather Henderson, built their own home. Their neighbor, Joseph Tenner, continued in the family trade of stone masonry.
My Uncle Joe, well, he was a self-taught man. He had his own books, he taught himself.
He would make speeches anywhere, you know. He could go in Washington and argue with any of them senators in there.
E.B. Henderson taught in Washington, D.C., and took the trolley to work. There were 2 waiting rooms at the East Falls Church station, one for whites, which was heated in the winter and clean, and one for blacks, which was cold and often filled with baggage and livestock.
There was such a debasing situation, and he really resented it, of course, but he had to tolerate it.
In 1912, the Virginia legislature authorized cities and towns to adopt segregation ordinances. By 1915, members of the Falls Church Town Council proposed an ordinance that would confine black residents to a small section of town. Families faced losing their land and homes.
Segregation now, segregation tomorrow, segregation forever. This was segregation, and whites wanted it their way.
I know my grandfather had just built this house in 1913. So he would have had to give up this house. He would have had to sell it or otherwise get rid of it and move someplace else. I think that would have happened to the same thing would have happened to the Tenners. And I think rather than take it, they decided to fight.
And he met with the Tenners and others and decided that something should be done about this.
Something was done. The Colored Citizens Protective League was formed. Eventually, this organization was chartered as the first rural branch of the NAACP. Joseph Tenner was the first president, and E.B. Henderson was the secretary. The NAACP engaged lawyers to prevent the enforcement of the segregation ordinance. The first rural branch had won its first battle.
They were very thorough. They were very respectful in their cause, but they were very serious in their commitment to standing up to what was about to be imposed on them.
I'm sure that this example is the kind of example that would lend not only historical but eminence to groups doing this, not just here in Virginia and the United States, but wherever there are groups that are being so debased as blacks were in those days.
E.B. and Mary Ellen Henderson spent the rest of their lives as educators. Mrs. Henderson was the principal of James Lee Elementary School and was active in membership recruitment for the NAACP.
My mother won awards for having the greatest number of initiates, memberships in the NAACP and the whole branch, the whole organization.
Not only that, but she had the total respect of the community. So if she was canvassing a community, she was going to get the membership because the community respected her. Respected her because she was the principal of the Falls Church Colored School, known at that time as the Falls Church Colored School. I think it was later called the James Lee Elementary School.
The Hendersons lived in their Falls Church home for 50 years. Today, Tenor Hill is no longer a quiet rural neighborhood. The Henderson home still stands. Joseph Tenor's home is gone. At the foot of the hill is a new home, the home of George Tenor Jr. and his wife Velma.
We're just proud to be able to move back onto Tenor Hill and to build a house in the same location that George actually grew up in.
Just to be able to be there for him is a joy for me.
That was the encourage right there. I bought that right there. Yeah.
So it's sort of like doing what they did for me when I was a kid. They looked out after me when I was a kid. Now I'm looking out after them now that they're older.
All old folks, I declare.
We're all old folks.
The Tenor Hill Heritage Foundation was formed to remember those who came before us, people who raised families, who contributed to the building of community, and were pioneers in the civil rights movement. There are plans to create a monument as a lasting tribute. The monument will be made with stone taken long ago from the quarry on Tenor Hill.
When I hear his name, Joseph Tenor, and I hear Ed Henderson, I think, man, these guys are warriors. You know, back there they faced all of the hate and a lot of adversity that they had to go through.
If they hadn't have stood up, where would we be now? What would have happened down the road if someone hadn't said, no, not this time?
You don't want to forget. I think it's wonderful that you could remember. To build that monument here, it should remind them of the struggle that people did to make it so they can live better today than they did when I come along.
I think it is important that that history exists. I think and the monument helps as a visual reminder that something significant happened here. And it is something that should not be forgotten.
It means everything to me. Everything to me. Yeah. Or to have somebody to come along and say, we did this and we did that, and you couldn't do this and do that here.
It shows that the things that, to me, that the people have done before my time, that will be recognized by by my children and the children after them.
It means that I can sit down and enjoy some of the stories and feel sad and feel happy when I hear those stories. And when my kids get older, I can pass those stories on to them.